Welcome everybody to the Latin Nerds Network. This is my review for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the third and likely final installment, of course, of James Gunn's Guardian series of the MCU, all that good stuff. Of course, James Gunn now, going over to DC, so DC fans should be excited about that. Listen, I'm a big Guardians fan. I love the first film. I think it's one of the MCU's best films, no doubt about it. It's a tier one film for me in terms of what the MCU has given us. The second one was okay. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was a step down. So I was really hoping that he could really finish this off on a high note, stick that landing, if you will, give us a nice, good trilogy of these characters, which I love, of course. Star Lord, Rocket Raccoon, Groot, Gamora, Drax, etc., etc. Just a fun bunch of characters, doing what they do and just defending the galaxy, if you will. Here now, this one, I want to keep this obviously spoiler free, naturally. It makes it a little bit harder to talk about, but to give my just overall impressions, because if you're an MCU fan, let's be real, you're probably gonna go watch it anyways. I'm just gonna try to help you set the right expectations and going and seeing this film. I'm just gonna give you my thoughts about what I thought about it overall, and I'll say this. This is very much a James Gunn film through and through, and no doubt about it. It's his baby, which is why he came back to finish this off after he was unceremoniously fired from Disney and Marvel after some tweets about 85 years ago, whenever that was. So I'm glad he was able to come back and really do this team of characters, group of characters justice. And I will say this is a really proper send-off for this group, if indeed it is the last one. They'll probably bring them back. It's Marvel, is what they do, and they'll go back to the well. But for the most part, I'm thinking this is the last time we see this group, this iteration of them. And that being said, I thought James Gunn really did a great job of bringing this home, giving us a nice, good emotional punch to these characters, a nice, good ending, coming through and sticking that landing, which is the most important part. Now, this isn't a perfect film. I'm going to get that out of the way, right? This isn't as good as the first, definitely better than the second. Has its problems, and I'll talk about that real quick just to kind of get that out of the way, because there's a lot more positives than negatives in this film. It's a little bit too long, I'll say that, and it could have shaved a lot of stuff. There's a lot of story in there that maybe they could have, taken off unnecessarily, a little bit messy at times. Not a huge deal for the most part. Warlock, who I heard everyone really was excited about, the comic book nerds was talking about Warlock, and he was criminally underused and kind of a waste, to be honest with you. I do not like the character at all. It was unnecessary, and I thought he would have been better off suited in a more typical Warlock, as far as what I hear who Warlock is. So for those who know who I'm talking about, you might be disappointed with that. But for the most part, the humor doesn't always hit, but what comedy does. But for the most part, the humor is there. It's just James Gunn type of humor, which you used to seeing in the first two films, is present here. I think it's more consistent than it was in the second film. So I like that. But ultimately, all the characters come to play. They all have their moment to shine. But at the end of the day, ultimately, this is a movie about Rocket Raccoon, right? He's the heart and soul of this film. You really get a good dive into his backstory, which they kind of alluded to a little bit in the first one, but here we're talking about deep dive and how he became who he is and why he is the way he is. I thought that really worked. It's very emotional, and it really paid off in the end. And it's really that emotion. Okay, this movie has really cool moments and some funny moments and good action. There's a great badass scene in the third act, which I love the way it was shot. Really well done. It looks great, of course. The money they pump in there, no doubt, CGI really hit well. But it was that this movie wouldn't have been the same without Rocket Raccoon's story, how it's brought in, and the emotional impact it has. Because you have his journey is very emotional, but obviously, you knew it's a final one, right? Final Guardians, you're gonna get something very emotional with the ending of each of these characters, and they handle that very well. James Gunn does. But Rocket Raccoon, he's the star of the show here. I really like what they did on there. There's gonna be a lot of man tears. Me myself, it almost came out. I didn't want to lose my man card completely, so I held it together. But there's gonna be moments I think is gonna get some of y'all, and that's a good thing. And I think what James Gunn really did well. He brings the fun, but he also brings the heart. Which is what made the first one so great, and I think he really kind of went back to that here. So at the end of the day, it's one of the better MCU movies the last couple of years, and I get it, that might not mean much considering I think MCU has the quality's dropped off a bit, maybe a lot. But this one is definitely one of the better films. Probably that and No Way Home, probably the best movies, with Phase 4 and 5 that they're giving us so far. And what's good about this movie, this is this is your standalone film, right? It has not a lot of tie-ins to the grand scheme of things, what the MCU is trying to do, or what I think they're trying to do, because honestly, I don't even think they know what they want to do. But that being said, this is just its own thing. Guardians, for the most part, always was its own thing, and I think James Gunn was allowed to do that, to finish this off and give these characters a good ending. So it really wrapped it really well. I love the last hour of the film. It's great after a kind of rocky, first hour and a half. It was good, but the Rocky Raccoon story really held it together. But with the payoff in the end, what really hit for me, very enjoyable. I think if fans are gonna like this, I think you guys are really gonna like it. Definitely go watch it. Comment below, let me know what you guys thought. And of course, if you haven't done so already, come on guys, subscribe below and feed money to go to the movies and talk about it afterwards. See you guys next time.